We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange.
Critics attack. It feels like I've been talking to myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all believe. And it feels alright where the worlds collide. Manipulation stands to make us break. What time you said coming over you. You wish it upon a star. You wish it on a star. You are, you are, you are. You fight back, it's an all-out attack. It feels like I've been taken on the world's machine. Because I want it more than anyone can dream. You look back and it's all in the past. You tell me how you live by all the things you do. Well, you can be yourself, but maybe I'm not you. And it feels alright when they come and say to you, you're the only thing that makes us all.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is the three amigos, the perfect way to kickstart your Newcastle United weekend, and happy Black Eye Friday, the night where people go out and end up going home with a black eye.
In honour of which, I've actually just updated you. I've just had a message off Stu off somebody else's phone. He's probably not going to make it because he's stuck in the airport and his phone's not working. Let's just say some of the language was choice.
Right.
So
okay.
in honour of both, there's a Jaeger bomb and a vodka 9 brew.
Never put it past Stu to make an appearance at some point. Welcome anyway. Plenty to talk about tonight, as always, in the next 2 hours. 2 hours for you tonight. We've had to do 90-minute shows the last couple of weeks. Just want to thank Paul McCartney. He doesn't watch the show, but what an absolutely brilliant show last night. I was at the O2 in London. Got a chance to see half the Beatles as well, because Ringo Starr came on and did a couple of songs with Paul. Also had a Rolling Stone invade the stage as well to do a version of Get Back, Ronnie Wood. But fantastic, and it got a chance to see the sound check as well. Paid quite a lot of money for those tickets, but fantastic, well worth going to see, and wonderful stuff. So great to see Paul McCartney, 82 years of age, 36 songs on the set list. Add to that another 10 he did at the sound check. Absolutely brilliant. Also want to say get well to Gary V, if he is watching. Is one of the guys who is constantly in the chat, always giving us a question or joining in the debate in the chat. He's not very well, so if he is watching, get well to you and Gary, and hope you get pulled round in time for Christmas. And good evening to Coco, who is sitting on Denise's knee, purring because NUFC Matters is coming on. Always nice to hear. And as Denise says, don't forget to get your Christmas due tickets. It is coming up 8 days now and counting for the Cat and Dog Shelter. Nobby Solano and Joe Allen will be there, so get yourself along. NewcastleLegends.com to buy your tickets. And being asked to try and get rid of some tickets for tomorrow night. Keith Gray, unfortunately, can't go to Lindisfarne tomorrow night at the City Hall. And they are second row tickets. Retail value is £90. He asked us to auction them, but I haven't got the facility to set up an auction. But what YouTube have given us is a thing which you'll see at the top of the chat. It's like a little dartboard. That gives you the opportunity to go and pay a small fee to auction. What we'll do is that gives me a way of counting who's actually joined. It's a £5 for 2 tickets with a cost value of £90 for 2. As I say, second row tickets for Lindisfarne tomorrow night. I appreciate that's really short notice. But if anybody fancies doing it, we're going to give the money to the Cat and Dog Shelter. We'll stick it in the fund for the Christmas do. And that will all go together towards the Cat and Dog Shelter. So if you want to do it, it lasts for an hour and a half. And we'll call the winner at the end. But as I say, Keith Gray's donated those tickets. He sent us the tickets as proof as well. And I'll be able to put you in touch with Keith if you are the lucky winner or the lucky participant. So hit the bullseye at the top of the, click the bullseye at the top of the chat and give it a go. Good luck to everybody. Okay, let's talk football. Steve Hasty, great result in the Carabao Cup. Wonderful to see Newcastle get through to the semi-final stage, and Arsenal lie in wait in the semi-finals, and the must-have in the semi-finals for me, and I know you guys agree, is getting that away tie first. Newcastle got everything they wanted in that respect, away at Arsenal first. Quite a strange scenario this time round, though. A 2-week wait until the replay. But let's concentrate on Brentford first before we look at Arsenal. I mean, I've got to be honest. I felt watching the match live, Brentford didn't really want to progress, and I know that sounds weird. But not starting with your main player, and Boomer or Mbuemo, as most of us call him, but that's not the pronunciation. He is, he is no doubt the star player, certainly in recent weeks. He had him on the bench, and I want to see Newcastle really dominated the game. They played well and whatever, but I didn't think Brentford came with the right attitude. I don't know what was the matter with them. I don't know whether the Chelsea game took too much out of them. But Newcastle turned up like they did against that and had to do a professional job, and they did it. And they scored 3 goals and deserved to go through. But it was a strange game. Add to that the strange atmosphere. Another nighttime game, which didn't miss all of the lights rubbish, which people tend to put out there because it's just a trend, and people do tend to follow the trend and keep on going about under the lights. Journalists continue to use that phrase now, which really irks on me. But there's nothing special about under the lights at St James's. It's actually a bit of a nightmare, and our crowd don't react to under the lights. In fact, they don't seem to like it, and they seem to go to sleep under the lights. So yeah, it's a strange situation. I'm not grouching, I'm not being negative. We're through. I'm over the moon. Glad to see we score 3 goals. Over the moon for Tonali. But yeah, it was a strange affair, Steve. I don't know whether it's just me thinking that, or whether you are, or what, whether our viewers are.
No, I mean, from a performance point of view, you're absolutely spot on. You nailed it. It was a very, very professional performance. Newcastle came out from the start with a plan. They were up for the game, and I thought that right across the pitch there was some excellent performances. And like you, I was very surprised to see Mbuemo not playing, not starting. I was impressed with Wissa. He was the one who was wearing the number 11. But apart from that, I got the impression it was kind of a couple together team. There was more about them in terms of wanting to slow the game down, wanting to stop us. They're kicking the ball away at free kicks, blocking runs, a lot of fouls. The referee, I don't know whether the referee was an AFL referee or whether he was one of the top-notch referees, but I thought that he let an awful lot go in their favour. situations that normally would have been picked up on, and you would have seen a yellow card to stamp out some of the niggly little things. And yet he would go out and book. I think it was Shaw for what was basically a nothing block. And I found it quite frustrating in that respect. But I think you could well look at it as Brentford are a team that don't play well away from home. Just the record shows they are not an away team, and they're not an away team if they keep putting out performances like that. And the manager keeps putting out teams like that, because they did look as though they didn't have really any sort of game plan. But thank goodness we did, and we. You know what? I've been a critic of Eddie Howe in the past in terms of whether he could motivate the players, whether this squad had reached the end of its tether in terms of where it's going. But what they've proved in the last couple of weeks is that there is something about them that after their previous performances, where various fans, probably including me to a certain extent, were on their back somewhat, or were critical. Because we hear this talk of plan Bs and no plan Bs and stuff like that. But you begin to wonder whether or not it's just sort of familiarity breeds contempt almost. Sometimes when a squad can put in some of the performances had. We have been a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde team over the last few weeks. And I think from a fan's point of view, and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, it's the disappointment. It's the what could have been. 6 more points. You look at 2 of the games that we've dropped points in. You think, you know what, points in those 2 games, and we would have been one of the people we're talking about instead of one of the teams that say, sitting there saying, well, they're in 11th place but 6 points away from a top 4. We could have been well clear in that top 4 situation if we'd taken those points. And I think that's the frustrating part of it. But you couldn't knock the performances, and I could rattle off virtually every player in that team. Even Dubravka, who has an awful lot of his critics, I thought that game was nailed on for a 3-0, another clean sheet for him. And it was just unfortunate that we lost the ball in the manner that we did on the halfway line, and then they broke away, and that's what they're good at, breakaways and quick counter attack. But I thought that Tonali, again, the longer the game goes on, the more dominant he becomes, the more controlled. The way that he mops up, the way that he's just picking the space and working across the line for both fullbacks, and now willing to take the ball off in the way that Bruno used to or does. He's now looking for the ball as well. He's feeding it through, and you're seeing now what a £50-odd million footballer he really is. And the way that Bruno's adapted and just pushed himself that little further forward and doing what we've always said he's the man to do. He's the man who, picks the lock, if you like, and makes the team flow for that final third. The rest of the team, you honestly, you couldn't knock them. So all in all, I think looking back and now, when you read the social media posts that are flying around, and you see Arsenal fans going, "Shit, we got the worst draw. We got Newcastle away in the second leg. We would have much rather played what will more than likely be a reduced Liverpool in terms of them saving various players and making changes, or a Tottenham who are schizophrenic. They wanted either of those, and they didn't want Newcastle United in the semi-final, and they got the hardest draw. And that says an awful lot about the way that the clubs are other supporters are looking at our performances over the last few weeks and thinking, you know what, when we are on song, we really, really do produce against.
I have a visitor.
You have a son.
Hey! I told you to turn up. I told you. Welcome to Stu. Good to see him. He's like Santa Claus. Thanks, Steve, for that.
Noon do Jaeger bombs, do they?
Well, I could smell them, so I thought I better get it here. There's a problem with my phone, and I'm stuck in the business lounge, and I've got a 6-hour wait over. in Dubai Airport. And I thought, well, I might as well come and see Mitch and see the lads and do the podcast and then go back.
Spot on.
Good stuff. Great stuff. Good to have you on, mate. Good to have you on. And seeing as though Mitch has gone off to have a Jaeger, give us your views of the cup performance, Stu, on Wednesday and the draw.
I thought it was an exceptional performance. There's nothing I can say that probably hasn't already been said. We look like a proper team. We've got 5 or 6 players that I think would fit into any team in the league. And they need to be added to us at the earliest opportunity. And hopefully, I don't want to use the 3 phase back on track, but I think we are. The cup draw, it doesn't matter who we got, because they're all decent teams, but so are we. That's the line made, I think. Yeah, so we're a decent team as well, and what we need is a bit of belief in ourselves to show that we are capable of doing it. And I thought Wednesday was such a professional, mature performance. They didn't let the emotion get the better of them. And the same again for the semi-finals, and we'll be back in Wembley in March.
Yeah, the away draw, the away tie is always the most important one. I think if you can go down there and get a 2-1, you know, or a 1-1, you know, it's only half time, and you can get back to Newcastle and you know, hopefully do the business. But the 2-week gap, Stu's interesting, isn't it? Not very often that happens. It's usually quite a quick turnaround in this, so that may well benefit a team or, you know, or not. It just depends on injuries and suspensions and stuff like that, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's a month gap between the 2 semis, but as far as I'm concerned, I don't see why we should come back with a loss. Why can't we come back with a win? I reckon Arsenal won't go full strength, and we will. And if we go on with the same belief, why can't we go and take a win down there? And then that'll just take them out of the equation, because they'll think, well, we've been up to St James too many times now, and we know what's coming, and they'll rest players for the second leg. I think we can get a positive result down there and get ourselves into the final, hopefully against Tottenham.
Mitch, your views on the cup win and draw?
Hello. Cheers. I don't think it mattered which team they played, mate. I think we'd have just put them away. I think we're in that kind of form. Genuinely think we're in that kind of form. For them, you've got to look at where they're at. I was speaking to our mutual friend Gareth over here, who's a Brentford fan, before the game. You know, and he pointed out they're missing their 2 first-choice wing-backs through injury and have been for most of the season. They're missing another couple of decent midfielders through injury. That Wissa, I didn't realise, is only a couple of goals behind what's his face in terms of most goals in the Premier League for Brentford. Ivan Toney, that is. And I was thinking, okay, let's have a look at him. And he just whinged all night. I'm sorry, like I wouldn't countenance him in our team. Just spent the entire night moaning and diving around like a fanny. And then, you know, they've got to cut the cloth to suit. They're looking at the Premier League, which is really tight from about 4th to 12th. And they're in that mix. And so what are they going to do? Are they going to go all in on a cup competition that know they're going to get a difficult draw in the semi-final of, or they're going to put out the best team they think they can hang on with? And that's exactly what they did. And I'm just glad we put them away properly. I can't see any complaint in the way we played. They could have played their full strength team, and I don't think it would have mattered a jot. I'm glad to see Tonali controlling the game, and that him and Bruno seem to be working out between them which areas of the pitch they both want to be in and don't want to be in at the same time. That's only going to get better with time and the more they play together. And I think for a draw, to go away at Arsenal first, where we know we can irritate them. I want to stop getting into the mind of that Lego-headed tomfool down at bloody Arsenal as soon as possible and keep in there, and then go down there with as much shithouse as we can possibly muster. I want to say every time the ball goes out for a throw, somebody doing some ball juggling with it, and you name it. Just anything to get under their skin. Because we know we can at least nick a draw down there and then bring them back to St James's. We know we can beat them here, and we'll beat them here reasonably regularly. And so it's of the semi-final draws we could have got, I think it's the one I would have been happiest with, and in that order too. And also, you've got to look at who else they're playing in and around that tie compared to who else we've got to play. They're going to have to rotate their squad. going to have to. They've got no choice. They've got other games, big games and other competitions all around that time and in between the two games, whereas we've got a little bit less of an arduous schedule. And I think we can play all of that to our advantage. But I really want to see us, as early as possible, start to get in Arteta's head, because he's that malleable, in my opinion.
George, thoughts on the cup win and the draw?
Well, the cup win was, the lads have said it, very professional, but more than that, we saw lots of good, positive things about our team, as well as lots of negative things about the Brentford team. The way Brentford played and the way they set up kind of took a bit of the shine off my regard for Thomas Frank, because he's getting hailed as this genius of some sort, yet he keeps his best players on the bench in a game which could easily have taken him to a semi-final of a major trophy, and didn't react until it was too late, till his team was already out of it. I mean, the midfield, Mbamba coming on was dangerous, but he sent a midfielder on whose name I can't remember now. He sounded Scandinavian. He caused with trouble every time he got the ball. And if he'd been on from the beginning, he would have given much more to think about. I don't think it would have altered the result. I think we still would have beat them. But it would have given us more to think about. And I really can't think what Thomas Frank's on about. And it's maybe his attitude that's fitness to the team is why they can't win away from home, because he's so negative away from home. It's just an odd situation to me, and something that would worry me if it was our manager. But the good things, well, anybody that had any doubts about Sandro Tonali, hopefully they've gone. I mean, that was classical, clinical, athletic. You put the adjective on it, and he had it all. And another demonstration of why, with his extra pace, he's that much better than Bruno is, and any of the other midfielders. I mean, 1 minute he's hitting the ball in the back of the net, and 30 seconds later he's helping a fullback at the other end of the field without any bother at all, just gliding across the turf to get back. The other thing I hope people would take notice of, watch when he's going for the ball. Very rarely do people get past Sandro Tonali when he spreads himself ready for a tackle. He always seems to manage to get a toe on the ball or something like that, and that's skill that you can't teach. That's inbuilt ball skill. So great delight for me to see him doing that, but also to see some of the others who were used to performing carrying on the good work, like the two fullbacks, Hall and Livramento, and coming into it, and Byrne and Shark back to something like normal. And as Steve said at the beginning, I'm not a 100% supporter of Dubravka, but I thought he did quite well. And for once, again, showed up how poor Pope is with his feet. Because Dubravka a couple of times played nice balls, which would have been in the stand if it had been Pope. It had been over the touchline and into the crowd. So there's so much good about it. But the lads have said it, very, very professional win indeed. And long may it continue. As to the draw, well, the interesting thing about the draw for me, I in my gut reaction was we were going to get Arsenal, so I wasn't disappointed with that. But my not horror, but my dismay in some ways at the reaction of the Sky people in the studio at the draw was, it'll be a North London derby for the final. Hold on, there's two other teams in there that might have something to say about that. They just dismiss us and Liverpool as well.
I think Hardy used stronger words than had on.
Yeah, in a sentence, which is really, really so unprofessional on their part. You at least give the other. I mean, we're talking semi-finals in a major tournament. Surely all four got there by merit, and they're entitled to the same sort of regard. But here's them saying, well, two of them don't matter. It's going to be a North London derby. Well, I sincerely hope we stick those words down our throats, because we don't deserve that. Neither do the other teams. Everybody got there by merit. And the other thing is that it went right way for us, away first. And like the lads have said, it puts you in a position to really, really upset them at the Emirates, so that when they come back to the St James's Park a month later, they'll be breathing fire. At least Arteta will be, and he'll have them so wound up in the dressing room that they'll make a huge mistake within minutes of going on the pitch, and that's just what we want. So yeah, it all round a good night for Newcastle United and the fans, and the one which I enjoyed greatly. Unusually, it's the first time for a long time I've watched it on the TV, because I didn't get to the match because I wasn't 100%, and protecting me trip at the weekend. Really, that's what I was doing. But the commentary was strange as well. One of the commentators was a local bloke, and I can't remember his name, but he was desperate for Brentford to score. I mean, he said
was it
things.
Michael Bridges? Because we had Michael Bridges on our comment.
It was Michael Bridges. It was Michael Bridges. What was some stupid thing? He says it would be good if Brentford got a goal to put something in this game. Sod off. We're putting it all into the game. It's up to us. We're putting it all in the game. What the hell do you want the other team to score for? And it gets sick as
I did. I was very happy they scored at the end, George.
It's ridiculous. Ridiculous. But never mind. But a great professional display from the team and everybody on there, from start to finish. I missed how Joe Linton got his facial injury. I don't know exactly what happened, but he's had to have stitches in his mouth and stitches in his ear. So what the hell they hit him with? I don't know.
The number 22 elbowed him in the face, and then when he came down, stood on his face afterwards.
Yeah, right. Well, that explains it. Yeah, because
whether there was a degree of intent in either, I'm not really sure, but I wouldn't be doing it with intent with him.
You mean like Van Dijk's shoulder charge on Anthony Gordon against
Liverpool?
Yeah. No,
I don't know whether you guys noticed on TV, but there was one little bit about 10 minutes later, because Joe Linton was absolutely furious and he was gunning for the kid. And it was about 10 minutes later, because as soon as he came back on, everybody around us was going, he's going to do him. And Pope went over twice to him to tell him, don't do anything. And then after 10 minutes, the other player, 22, said something to the referee. Next thing you know, the referee says something to Joe Linton. And Joe Linton's looking at the referee and saying, what? Next thing, he makes them shake hands and, do the old, oh, sorry about that, mate.
Yeah.
10 minutes later, I think that kid was panicking that he was going to get done. And I think the referee was panicking that he was going to have to do something about it, But it was a strange. The incident itself was bad enough, but the way that the referee, right in front of him, he ignored the elbow, he ignored the plant of the foot onto the side of his face, and then to allow it to carry on for a little while before he eventually blew up. But then the following reaction, as I say, from Pope and the opposition player and the referee, because they were convinced that they were going to go after him.
You said earlier, Steve, about refereeing from the Football League, and that's exactly what it is. And I think that's what they do with ties like this in the League Cup. They take the referees that they think have potential to be elevated and give them a big tie in the quarter-finals and see how he gets away. Well, he refereed it like a typical Football League game.
Yeah.
Yes.
He let certain things go that I know in the Premier League would not have been allowed to let go.
And also, you remember
early chance by
as well.
He turned the lad over on his head, and the referee just made play on. And then he booked short for something quite innocuous. And it was classic what I remember of Football League refereeing. And when I talk to fans of other teams from lower divisions out here in Dubai, the one thing they say is, hey, if you think Premier League refereeing's bad, just wait till you see. And I remember from when we were down in the Championship last, one of the things that I take away from that last Championship season was the absolute dire state of refereeing in that division. And I can't see it being any better. And that was a prime example that if that's one of the best of their guys vying to replace, referees at the top flight who've been moved on for one reason or another, then it doesn't bode well.
Yeah. Do you think, I wonder if after the game, the PGMOL and the referee and the assessor get together and then they say to him, well, you did really well because there was no VAR there. And by the way, if there had been VAR, would have picked you up on this, and this, and this, or whether that goes on. I'd love to know. I'd love to be able to hear from somebody involved in the PGMOL if that's the sort of thing that happens, or someone, the likes of Steve Howie who does assessments of referee and writes on behalf of the FA and puts reports in. I'd love to hear from someone like that to find out whether or not that is the sort of conversation that goes on post game in a situation where there hasn't been any VAR, but they then reassess it as though and say, well, if it was VAR, we would have picked you up on that. So be aware of that. You need to be a little bit sharper on this, blah, blah, blah. And almost using it as a sort of test bed, if you like, to see whether that referee can up his performance and up his game before he then moves into the elite level, where he will have the support of the VAR.
Yeah, interesting.
In answer to that question before, by the way, no, we're not doing the boxing this time round because this man's here at the minute because he's on his way out of town and he'll be elsewhere during when the fight's on, won't you?
Tell the truth, we had tickets for it. We were offered tickets for it, but because George has come to visit Mitch, we had to turn them down. So it's George's.
Gee, thanks, lads.
I'm only joking, George.
That was a left hook, that one, mate.
I'll be on the other side of the world. I'll be back in Dubai to see you before you leave.
Okay, Stu, look forward to it.
Good stuff. Okay, time for this. Tweet of the week. Did want to mention this to start with. We featured this the lorry that Scunny Margaret had his photograph taken alongside. Guy Carr sent us a nice message this week, just saying the story on the Newcastle one, because there was another lorry apparently. Is he had it done just after COVID, but died suddenly the day before delivery, so never got to see it. He had plenty of other trucks painted in Newcastle colours in the past, so there was a little story attached to that. So there we go. Thank you, Guy, for that, mate, and sad to hear that. Onto the tweets. If you're easily offended, look away now. When the racket on your tennis trophy breaks and it looks like you've won an alternative award for something else, lads. Hope you don't find this out and about on your Christmas party nights out. New wipe and wax toilet roll, folks. How many people have wanted to do that, I bet. And Robert, welcome to Robert, the first man to go to the moon without a space rocket.
Yeah, me.
And yes, Weaver shaving contest at Weaver Valley. 3 hours, this guy queued to see this.
It's a very well kept beaver.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, they used Phillips head screws, apparently. And continuing on the Star Wars theme, when you turn a stormtrooper's helmet upside down, they are much less serious looking, lads. Very good.
Nice one. Nice one.
And you still haven't found the droids you're looking for.
Oh.
Singing from UT Duty or UTD2, yep. Des, thank you for this one as well. A Star Wars theme romantic evening for someone. I will not be your father. Condoms. Great that. And pictures on Tinder profile and when you actually meet them. And thanks to this one, this is a classic. Do you think Chewbacca has a human-like dick, or is it one of those red rocket things like dogs get? George Lucas won't answer my emails.
You know what?
The things people think of. Stealth fighters don't get much better than this, lads. And I thought this lone silhouette was a woman who had toppled forward while gardening.
As soon as you look, it changes.
Becoming a bit of a feature, this one for George. Scottish banter, there's only one winner. Merry Christmas. One for George from Steve Middlemiss. Yes, you got your own brew supplies there. And things you don't want to see on an aeroplane. I was your pilot.
Shite.
And you do like your signs, you lot. I feel like this could have been worded slightly better. Dear Mr. Postman, I have disinfected my flaps for you. Here's a drive-through in America.
Oh, dear me.
Yeah, badly placed sign or badly placed car. And Victorian iPads, $3.75. Cheers, Des. Members mark, tones, chopped toenails. Looks lovely, doesn't it? Looks lovely.
Absolutely lovely, yeah.
Wash them down, George, with some magical penis wine.
My goodness.
Probably does something for you. Maybe it makes your hair grow. Please don't touch yourselves. Ask us to touch it for you in the arcades. And it is against the fire code to hang anything from this pipe. A good restaurant to go to, perhaps, over Christmas.
It's difficult to find, apparently.
Definitely is. And closed for sex. Be back in 30 minutes. Thank you is the sign at the garage. At least she's honest. Or he's honest. Or they're honest. Maybe it's just me, but I think Esurance should have used a different font for their sign. Cover your home in a... It does say click. And do not use this pump. Milk has been coming out of it.
What?
I know. It leaves a lot to the imagination. Yellow bananas, boneless.
Fact.
Fact. Certainly is a fact. And Krabby's Dick, Delaware Marketplace and Grill in America. Eat our balls with our homemade semen sauce. I do like this one. Yes, Giga Ferry, Aaron Ferry, and someone's put Brian Ferry in the middle of that. And also in Scotland, here's a word, a polite response when a Glaswegian does not know the answer to a question. And do not click buttons with genitalia. Cameras are watching in a lift in Alabama.
Wow.
And apologies.
Old people there.
This is in London this week. Apologies. Stole your bike last night in the final chapter of an export-fueled rampage. Smooth ride and great bike choice, fam. 10 out of 10. Would steal again. And Merry Christmas to one and all, except 482. And a great T-shirt as well. I lost 8 kilos in 2 weeks. Bloody sniffer dogs. And if you ever feel useless, remember someone did this, lads.
God.
Christmas is quickly approaching, so we've got a few festive ones. I blame the Stranglers myself.
Yeah, no more heroes.
No more heroes. And a traditional Liverpool one, which we'll get every year. Welcome to Liverpool. Only 13 shoplifting days till Christmas. I was sent that, obviously, earlier in the week. Great to see Mary on keyboard and Joseph on vocals on this year's Christmas stamp. And I have a copy of the 1982 Radio Times if anybody wants to know what's on BBC this Christmas, says Gary.
You're dead right, Gary.
Very true. 2 tips for Christmas. 1, forget the past, you can't change it. 2, forget the present. I didn't get you one. Cheers, Jimmy. And when I was sent this, I did. This is genuine, by the way. I did think of Mitch immediately. Liquid Death's $75 pit diaper that lets you pee during concert sells out in under 24 hours. So sorry, Mitch, I didn't get you one. Didn't manage to get you one.
It's all right. I'll just go back to using the catheter.
A modern day version of Home Alone. This is what would happen. Mom, Dad, hello, I'm home alone. Kevin, I'm so sorry. We just boarded, but I'll get the plane and come right home. The end. Christmas tip: wrap empty boxes and put them under the tree. Every time your child acts up, throw one in the fireplace. Cecilia replied, "What if I run out of kids?" And Ian loved this. Mistletoe is an evergreen plant which produces oval leaves, white berries, and sexual harassment lawsuits. And if you see this car, ring the police. It's stolen.
Oh, God.
Brilliant, Keith. Brilliant. Not tweet of the week, though, but brilliant. I did like it. And a picture of a planet 5 billion kilometers away. Bank security cameras. Very true. Anyway, lads, time to break the tweet of the week up. Here's, instead of these negative tweets, here's a pic of some topless chicks in short skirts.
Oh.
And the Daily Dafty is out again this week. I really thought my wife was joking when she said she wanted to see Monkey's tribute band in Switzerland. And then I saw her face. Now I'm in Geneva.
Oh, dear.
Right.
And a Geordie sing-along as well. Get your singing pants on in Romford, where I lived for a few years from 2011, says Ugly Camel. Waxen. Very good. And into the business end. Jimmy didn't win this week, but I did like this. Vader seen better days. Need money for Death Star repairs. And number 3, Ian, I liked it. You've got the whole plane to yourself. The large group going to the psychic convention, all cancelled at the last moment. And number 2, a tree fell on my fence, making the best of it while I negotiate the repair. Beware of the dog. The winner this week for the penultimate one of the year, from Dougie Morris, Mike Check, and someone's messaged him to say 1-2, 1-2.
Love it, Dougie.
Very good, Dougie. Thank you for that, mate. Keep your tweets coming. We do have a Facebook group and a Facebook page. Join the group, like the page, or at Steve Wraith on X, and we will feature them next week. And don't forget as well, you can also send us an email if you want to do that. nufcmatters1892 at gmail.com to feature on Tweet of the Week. Okay, just want to ask you about this. A couple of posts this week have had me in stitches, but this one in particular was an editorial on Sunderland Global Media. SGM doesn't promote Sam Fender. Although he's from North Tyneside, Sam Fender produces a trend that we might describe as the Geordification of the Northeast, which defines the region and its identity purely around Newcastle, and then makes NUFC an integral part of it, alienating and excluding Sunderland. Yesterday, I saw a photo of someone from South Shields wearing a 1995 NUFC shirt and bemoaning that War Sam had cancelled his concert. The person has no interest in football, yet has seemingly bought into the idea that this is what we have to do to see him as Geordies. This got me thinking that Fender is actively promoting a regional belonging associated directly with the club and is appealing to the third-party towns, particularly young people. Geordification generally takes popular figures, music and entertainers, and reapproach them as part of the NUFC mythology, thus pitting them into the us versus them dynamic between Newcastle and Sunderland fans. It also becomes problematic when Southerners, not understanding this, continue to use Geordie to define the whole region. This is a trend that began in the 1990s with John Hall and his Geordie Nation rhetoric. Before this, the term Geordie was not really controversial in Sunderland at all, and nor was it antagonistic. There are still stories of Sunderland Geordies chants in the 1980s at Roker Park, although happy to be corrected on that. The Geordification of the North East is a stumbling block to regional unity, and it has been a key driver in promoting Mackem culture in response. Publications such as the Mackem Dictionary and the Mackem Cookbook are amongst the most successful cultural items used to reassert local identity and indirectly resist an NUFC-centric narrative of Northeast England and its culture. Steve, this is right up your street. What do you make of that?
What a load of rubbish. Unbelievable. You know what? It's just another chip, isn't it? Just another chip on the shoulder of the people down on the weir. I mean, let's face it, Newcastle is the main town, main city. Everybody associates the North East with Newcastle United. Sunderland are the poor relations in that respect. And they're upset by it. And yeah, there are plenty of people who I admire who were Sunderland fans or from Sunderland, you know. So I don't have that concern, you know. I mean, you know, when I look at, say, musicians, you know, or I look at people on TV, you know, I mean, there was the newsreader and presenter Kate Adie, who was one of the most amazing people on television. You know, a roving reporter throughout the 80s and 90s and war zones and all that type of thing. And she was from Sunderland. So, you know, so what? Steve Cram was a wonderful athlete that embraced the Northeast, didn't he, at the time when he ran for Jarrow? That's hardly on Sunderland, but he happened to wear red and white. So what? To say that it was John Hall and they're getting the huff over the Geordie centrification business is a load of rubbish. And let's face it, the Mackem cookbook, it's only popular because they've got a chip on their shoulder and there's probably a Geordie cookbook out there and they're annoyed with every biters.
It'll be a cheesy chip.
There is.
Well, a big chip, you know, probably a packet of chips.
On the shoulder.
It's the kind of trying to like look back and go, this is why nobody likes we, you know, because it's them Geordies up the road that's stealing all our publicity, we're stealing everything. I just find the whole thing laughable. I honestly do, Steve. And I don't fall for the tribalism. In that respect, I think that, but you know, the way that they're going on. I mean, yes, Sam is promoting as a lad from North Shields. He's promoting the fact that we know his uncle, who's, you know, black and white daft and that type of thing. It's neither here nor there. It just happens to be his football club, and you know, the band members happen to be black and white Newcastle fans as well. You look at Ipswich and you look at Ed Sheeran, and if you want to talk about gentrification or you want to talk about glorification, Ed Sheeran's put his money where his mouth is with regards to Ipswich, and he sponsored them. He sponsored the shirts this season. I mean, he's come out and said that he can't do it next season because the football club's now in the Premier League, and the amount of money that the football club should be getting for shirt sponsorship is huge, and nowhere near the sort of money that he could afford. But he could afford it when they were in the Championship and when they were in the First Division, where he started first sponsoring them, because the club were desperately short of funds at that particular time. And that's just a lad who happens to support and wants to support his local football team. So I think the Mackems need to, you know, go out and find someone who can support them in the way that Sam Fender's promoting Newcastle United, or the way that Newcastle United are promoting Sam Fender, because you imagine what they're going to be like when they find out that on Wednesday night there was actually a little bit on the back of a shirt that was sponsoring Sam Fender and promoting Sam Fender's gigs and stuff. So, you know, when they find that out as well, you know, when they get their little magnifying glasses out and start looking, they'll be even more demented. But just let them get on with it, Steve. Let them get on with it. Just petty, childish, and got no time for it.
Interesting one, this, Stu, I guess. I mean, it's you know, it's a debate, isn't it? It's a debate that's gone on for years. But yeah, what did you make of that? The stuff that I read out.
I thought it was commendable that a Mackem could write so well, and after that, after reading it and digesting it, if this was a meme, it'd be the Alan Partridge one where it just goes, I'm not even bothered about them. I'm not interested in what they've got to say. They live their life looking at us. And if they actually tried to better themselves rather than try and bring other people down, the place would be a better place. And we said jokingly, quietly off air there, when Steve was referring to Kate Adie, well, she's used to living in places that look like they've been bombed anyway. So with
I knew you'd say that.
But it's not just football, Steve. It's been going on for well before my time, well before George's time. This is decades, centuries old. But going back many years ago, I worked in Sunderland. Actually, I worked in Sunderland when the 95-96 season, and that's when I started putting weight on, because I used to have a bet with a lad called Big Dave, who I'm sure I told this story on the retro show. We had a bet of 2 Mars bars every week on who had the better results. And they were desperate for us not to win the league. And they kept saying, I would rather us go down as long as you don't win the league. And I was like, do you know what it is? I don't care if you finish second as long as we finish first. And it's a small town mentality thing. And rather than point and write articles about what Newcastle do, and they need to start looking at themselves and think, how can they better themselves? Because until that changes, they'll continue to do it, obviously.
Mitch, thoughts? What's your thoughts on?
Whoever wrote that needs a history lesson. Needs a long history lesson about the rivalry between Newcastle and Sunderland. The fact that it's not it's a derby of a region. It goes back to civil wars and Jacobite rebellions. It goes back to fighting over coal and corn rights for the northeast. It goes back to a number of different things that are so much bigger and deeper than football. I don't know when it changed. I remember quite happily going to Roker Park with my dad when we got the opportunity. They all knew we were black and white, but they knew we'd go and quite happily to see a game of football. And then if late it has changed, but that's nothing to do with Newcastle United. Sunderland feel at the moment like a team and a club in a city that is desperate for identity and is desperate to know what they are and where they are in the world. We've had an amazing period where we've grown up as a city and we understand where we are in the world, and we understand a lot more, certainly compared to the city I grew up in. And I'm very proud of that. And they've got plenty of things that they should be proud of instead of looking up the road and being jealous. They've got MPs who stand in Sunderland shirts who then campaign to change the name of Newcastle Airport because they don't have one, but we own a bit of it. Well, so what? It is where it is. Do you want to change geography? It's really, it's really, really sad. And talking about South Shields, well, I know red and whiters in South Shields who don't want to be called Mackems, they want to be called Geordies. They're born on the banks of the Tyne, but they support Sunderland. I know one very well out here. His brother's black and white, he's red and white. And that's when you go into mixed areas like that, that's what you find. If we call this lad a Mackem out here, he gets very, very agitated. So of course we call him a Mackem at every opportunity. But, you know, South Shields is a very interesting one to talk about because of the way that the support there's divided. And families are split. And so, again, that's somebody who really doesn't know what the fuck he's talking about. And he needs to wind his neck in.
Okay. Thoughts on this, George? I'm sure you've got an opinion.
Well, a lot. You know, it's so historical, and it's so historical. It's hysterical as well because it's absolute rubbish. Absolute rubbish. I'll give you a personal example. For 11 years of my life, I was county commissioner for Scouts for Durham, which happens in current terms to include all the south of the Tyne, including Sunderland, and all the way down to the Cleveland border, and all the way up to the Tyne in the norths, which includes Gateshead, South Shields, Jarrow, etc. So in that time, if there's a scout hut at the bottom of any street corner in the little villages all over Durham, I've been to it. And one of the things I very quickly learned is whether it was out somewhere out Barnard Castle or up St John on the Cumberland border, I had to be careful what I said because there was more black and whites in the audience than there was bloody red and whites everywhere I went. And I very quickly realised that people didn't identify the way that that the Mackhams did, and so it was easy territory for me because I knew I was speaking to friends most of the time. The other thing is that they've turned something that was, and Neil said it. I remember my father and Neil, when he was old enough, we used to walk through the Tyne tunnel from Howden, where we lived, and jump on the bus at Jarrah to go to Roker Park. And that bus was filled of Mackham supporters from bloody Ashington. That's where the bus come from. It didn't start in Jarrah. It started in Ashington and picked people up in Jarrah, and we used to get on. And it was great fun. And my worry is that the nasty side of it's turned in the same way that, if you notice, with the political riots and the racist riots that there's been over there in recent months, it didn't happen on Tyneside, but it did in Sunderland. And there's always been that right-wing flavour trying to cause. Look at the trouble it caused at the England v Turkey match, which was totally unnecessary. So there's an underlying current there, which I think does a discredit to the real people of Sunderland, and unfortunately plays into the agenda of a small handful of people who are envious and ready to cause trouble. The other thing is it's not helped. I mean, they talk about John Hall. Well, what about the former Sunderland chairman, who, when he built his new stadium, says it'll always have one more seat than St James's Park? Well, I'm afraid you got that wrong, buddy lad.
Bob Buddy.
Yeah, Bob. Yeah, he couldn't have his tongue, as they say, and that's all he had to say about it. Well, if you go, I happen to know is the fact that if they go into the stadium right now and they opened up all the furniture, every joint on the furniture that's in that stadium has got a Newcastle badge stuck in it, because I know the lad that put it all together. No, it's sadly, I think there's an undercurrent of nastiness that's turning this into a flavour for certain people. As I say, as demonstrated with the way they got involved in the riots recently, and in a very big racial way, and things like the riots at the Turkey match, and they've turned that into something that the gainsayers can use as in theirs, and the ordinary good people of Sunderland really are getting the blame for, and I think that's quite sad. But just to stretch it a little bit, my hope for the Premier League, and I don't mind admitting this publicly, would be 3 Premier Leagues from the North, teams in the Premier League from the Northeast, because we've got a London block, we've got a Manchester block, we've got a Northeast West block. We used to have a Midlands block, but it's only 2 teams. Well, wouldn't it be nice to have 3 teams voting in the Premier League for what we want here in the Northeast? Because it's our supporters from our 3 clubs who pay all the bloody train fares to go to Brighton and Bournemouth and God knows in Plymouth when we've got to do it. That costs our supporters so much. Wouldn't it be nice to have 3 clubs able to influence that? But with the attitude that they're displaying, they'll never get there. They'll never get there because they're too small-minded.
Okay, plenty to talk about in the second half of the show, and we've also got the very last lookalikes as well. It's time to park that, I think. Now we've had 4 great years with it, but time to bring in a new feature in the new year. But yeah, we will have one more lookalikes for you to have a chocolate in the second half of the show. But now, time for the ads. A big thanks to all our sponsors, Skips and Bins. You can find them at their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them by email, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickys.co.uk. Email info@mrvickys.co.uk. or telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to United Group Travel, our fanzine sponsors. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2024 tours, 2 crew driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels and no interchanges. All excursions included. Their website, unitedgrouptravel.com, email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com, telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. 2024 Travel and Tourism Award winners. Thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the technical side of things. You can find them at their website, media-arts.co.uk. Our podcast is now available on Sport Social Podcast Network. You can also find us on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to support the show, hit the thumb up under the video, and that likes the video. Click share to share to your other social media, and hit the subscribe button. We do 7 shows a week. Or hit the join button if you want to financially support us. It costs $1.99 a month. Some dates for your diary. The NUFC Matters Christmas party is in aid of Newcastle Dog and Cat Shelter. Tickets £10 from newcastlelegends.com. The event takes place Saturday, 28th of December, 7 till 11 at the Tyneside Irish Centre. The Longstands are making a reunion in aid of Newcastle Dog and Cat Shelter Saturday, January the 4th at the Clooney. Tickets are £15 from the Clooney venue or newcastlelegends.com. Peter Beardsley will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre on January the 10th. Tickets available from Woucher or from newcastlelegends.com. And an evening with the Entertainers, 24th of January. Box office number 0191 243 1171 or website Tyne Theatre and Opera House. .uk. The Lee Clark event is now taking place at the Tyneside Irish Centre on the 31st of January. Tickets available from Woucher. And an afternoon with Sir Les Ferdinand takes place the 6th of April 2025, 12 till 4 at the O2 City Hall in Newcastle. Tickets for that from ticketmaster.co.uk. We have limited fanzine subscriptions available. Go to the website newcastlelegends.com to order yours today. And Will Scott's book is also available from the same website, as well as the Backpage Shop, Waterstones, and WH Smith's. Okay, welcome back to NUFC Matters. You're watching the 3 Amigos. Don't forget, we are giving away 2 tickets tonight for the Lindisfarne gig tomorrow. All you need to do is click that little bullseye at the top of the chat. We've got 2 people who've already done that. We've got Ray and Yvonne, both in with a chance of winning 2 tickets and the second row for the Lindisfarne Christmas show at the City Hall tomorrow. Any money we make from that will go towards the cat and dog shelter. And we'll stick it into the Christmas do pot to give to them. So give it a go. Yvonne and Ray, please email nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. If you win, just drop us your info and we can put you in touch with the person who has donated those 2 tickets, please. Just a couple of other things that we've got here. I did get this off somebody. I didn't include it in Tweet of the Week. Following on from that article that we've just read out, semi-final is technically a home tie for NUFC. Someone commenting here saying technically this is a home tie with a second leg being at home. So that's 4 home draws in a row. Even the away tie they ended up playing at home.
Yeah.
Oh, dear me, oh. Honestly, these people. Unbelievable that. And
here's another one, Steve.
yeah.
2 ships passing in the Suez Canal, and the bloke on one ship shouts, "Any Mackems on board?" And the other ship shouts back, "No, the crew's all English."
Oh dear. Here we go. Steve's happy face. We did use this last week, Steve, but just for old time's sake. There you go, Steve. We'll get the dog out the way. And yeah, we've got to. And this one was sent in as well, Steve. Very Dog's actually going in for a hasty
Yeah, mate.
haircut now. And I've just chucked this in from Albert. It was the nearest thing I could find on his timeline that looks relatively like you, Steve.
Poor cat.
And when you're at school trying to concentrate, but you can't stop thinking about your dog, it's a hasty haircut.
Oh, Croxy.
And another one, when you open the pantry at midnight. I know you're not doing lookalikes anymore, Steve, but I'm sure that's Steve Hasty.
Yeah, mate.
Steve Hasty outdoors. We have got one of me to run us off there from Martin. Lads on Toon Lookalikes, seen this lad somewhere before. Thank you, mate. We've got Keith Patterson, bottom left, lads. This is spooky from Dunnell.
Wow.
Very like Keith. One more Steve Hasty one, seeing as though it's Christmas. And a great one of Mitch. I wish this was a bigger photo, actually. Dougie Morris.
Not in them shoes. Not in them shoes.
Just been a cramming today. I'm sure I've just seen Mitch shopping. Brilliant, that does look
Not
a bit
enough
like
for the
you.
trolley.
Not in them
Good
shoes.
proof. Jacob, thanks for these, mate. Got your email. Yeah, similar running stance, certainly. Bit of a lookalike. Gary, thanks for this one. An AI shows what Jack Dawson would look like if he hadn't died on the Titanic. Jacob chucked in another couple. Very good. Brenda Blethen there, of course, giving up our half of the episodes of Era now is coming to an end.
Yeah.
And yeah, well done, Jacob. That's a kid off Coronation Street on the left, I think, isn't it? I got sent this quite a few months ago as well. It's always, I think we'd had that years ago, but seeing as though it's the last one, I thought I'd chuck it in. And it's nearly Christmas, of course. Colin the Caterpillar and a Swiss roll. Michael Jackson on Stu's flight today. Okay, coming down to the last few. Stephen Kennedy, thanks for this. Stephen Banks, and child actor of the 70s. Richard Osman as well.
Yeah, it's good, that.
Jimmy Moore. Baseball player Juan Soto and Vincent Company.
Yep.
See that.
Maureen, we've had this one before, but I chucked it in because you chucked it in at the end. Very good. Mbappe and Reg Varney. David Cook, thanks for this one. My final contribution to lookalikes, Marcus Eves and the chef of MasterChef and Dean Henderson, the Palace keeper. Top three. Thanks, Tim. Danny, rate my takeaway, and Ricky Evans, the dart player.
That's clever, that. Good. Yeah.
Very good. Number 2. Queen Elizabeth I.
Very good.
And the final winner of Lookalike, Paul Charlton. Well done. Ipswich's manager, Kieran McKenna, and Dominic Skur.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well done, Paul. Well done. You've won the final Lookalike. Well done. And Steve, it's only right that you should say a final couple of words about Lookalikes. I mean, you've enjoyed it over the years. At least you've been able to have a laugh.
They've been great. I mean, we started them off during COVID, and it was something, I think, to keep Keith Patterson going, wasn't it? Because it certainly did.
Yeah.
And it just seemed to mushroom from there, and everybody enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it. It's been a good laugh. But you're right, it's kind of reached the end. I don't think there's any more dog photos left. I think we've been through every single breed. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I hope everybody else has. And you know what? I will be forever known as a dog, I think. That's the thing.
Yeah, it was a rough deal, mate, but we'll move on now. NUFC matters 1892 at gmail.com. Send us over an email telling us about your first match. If you've got a photograph of it, please do. If you've got a copy of the program, send it over. That's what we're going to do. It's got to be in depth. I won't accept a tweet. I won't accept a short tweet. My first game was on this date, because that's no good. We'll want a bit of description so we can read it out. So that's what we need. NUFC matters 1892 at gmail.com. Get your my first games in, and we will feature the first one. The first one proper, because we've tried this a couple of times on other shows. We're going to do it properly week in, week out on a Friday, and hopefully we'll build up a lovely picture of different games that our viewers have been to. But for the last time, here's the music. Well, let's talk about Tonali. We've already spoken briefly about him and his 2-goal burst, of course, against Brentford in the Cup. But just a few stats, really, just to show you, which Spenny has sent us this week, and one or two other people. Tonali played more passes than any other player on the pitch, 60, with an accuracy of 93%. Ranked highest for successful tackles, made 4, enjoyed a higher share of possession than any of his co-stars, and his incredible fitness was also evident from minute 1 to minute 93. 74 touches, 50 to 60 passes, 7 ball recoveries, 6 duels won, 5 shots, 4 touches in opponent's box, and 2 goals. And our favourite stat, of course, XG. Can anybody explain what on earth it is? 0.28. But yes, Tonali. We wondered what he was going to be like, Steve. We wondered whether he was going to hit the ground running. We wondered whether the year off or so was going to affect him. We wondered, whether the media were telling us lies or whether it was genuine that he was wanting to head back to Milan. We were wondering whether he could play alongside Bruno. I think our questions are gradually starting to get answered by the man himself. A man of few words, but a man who's trying his best with not only the Geordie, but also the English language. And he's doing that well because he was thrust in front of the media pre-match and then post-match, of course, because of his 2 goals. But, I think the answer's starting to become quite obvious, isn't it? That Tonali's a baller and starting to repay that transfer fee we paid out, but also a player that could potentially turn us from bridesmaids into bride and potentially winning our first trophy.
Absolutely, Stephen. I mean, for many fans, I think the jury was out on Tonali after what was a wonderful goal in his home debut against Aston Villa, and then obviously the problems started to ensue, and there were obviously massive issues there, which are well documented. But you don't get into becoming an Italian international unless you've got quality, unless you have something about you. And he has it in spades. He is one of those Italian footballers who can glide around a pitch. He can ghost about. He can pass a ball. He can tackle. He can score goals. He can play deep. He can win the ball and give it. He can make runs. He can set players up. Everything about his performances over the last few weeks has shown that yes, there is a footballer there, no question about it. It's interesting for me how Eddie. I'm caught between a rock and a hard place when I talk about it. I don't know whether Eddie has purposely kept him back for 1 or 2 reasons. One being a fitness thing and a mental thing, being the second, being out for so long, or whether Eddie simply just didn't know how to fit him in, was struggling to find the blend. I'm going to turn it and say perhaps he was protecting the player. Perhaps he was looking after him. I mean, he brought him in for a couple of games, then he was out again, and then we saw him run his socks off in a midweek game and then not play the following week. But he did the same with Anthony Gordon, and I think that when you look at the way that Eddie has approached this season, it's been different to the way he's approached previous seasons. The way that he's managed his squad, the way that he's got the players, whether that's to do with the arrival of James Bunce and a little bit more data that's been made available to him. Certainly when he left Tonali out, it seemed to be based on the data. It seemed to be based on the fact that he suffered from cramp, and they didn't want that cramp to then manifest into something that worse down the line that could culminated in a calf injury or whatever. So they held him back. And I'd like to think that that's the way that we're going moving forward. But as a footballer, he's wonderful to watch. He's a slow burner. He starts off the game relatively slow, but what you get is an abundance of energy just at the point where you need it. From that sort of towards the latter part of the first half, and then from 65 minutes onwards, when changes are being made, but that player, if he stays on the pitch, is able to adapt and he's able to move and almost into another gear, if you like. And that's the way that I'm seeing it. He moved from third into fourth when new fresh blood comes onto the pitch and he's there. Basically say, right, well, while you get up to speed, I'm going to be doing this and I'm going to be doing that. And he seems to be, as the game goes on, he seems to move further forward. Whether that's because he's allowed to and that's the game plan or whatever, I'm not too sure. But we're certainly reaping the rewards of it. Whatever Eddie's done and whatever Eddie's said and whatever Eddie has conjured up in terms of how he's working with the player, we are certainly, reaping the rewards, as I say, because I'm seeing now a footballer that is very, very soon going to be the first name on the team sheet. Bruno was always my first name on the team sheet, but Tonali is going to be that special player. And yeah, he does remind you a bit of Peter Beardsley in the way that technically he can get around a football pitch, can read a game. I don't think there was anyone better in a black and white shirt than Peter, by the way. So I'll not push that one right down into that path. I'll steer clear of it. But certainly for me, what we're seeing is a proper footballer in a black and white shirt. Something that if the club can carry on, if we can get some success, we start to win trophies, then we'll see more and more Tonalis. We'll see more and more quality. Other clubs have it. We'll start to have it not in one player or two players, but in 5 or 6 players in various positions across. So, but having Tonali there, coming from Italy and performing the way he is, and I think we are seeing a really, really top class international footballer, one that other clubs in the league will start to look at, and clubs and fans will be quite jealous of, and that's going to be a positive.
Stu, Tonali, definitely starting to show. Go on, Mitch. You got your hand.
I'll go next, mate. Explain in a bit. Look, he's quality. He's pure quality. He's pure class. And now it's starting to come out. And I think the difficult thing that we've had with him is his character. He's quite an introvert. And that makes him difficult to read. But there's things within the squad now that we're seeing. Like, for example, when everybody got around him, I think it was for the second goal, they started singing his chant from the terrace.
Yeah.
When have you ever seen that? To have all the players doing that, and he's a different type of character. If anybody's seen Dan Burns' Christmas quiz from the club today, and everybody pretty much says Will Asula's the last person I want a room with, and then when you see him with his blonde hair doing what he's doing with the 2 Brazilian lads, very different personality. With Tonali, you've got somebody who's much more of an introvert. He's been through a hell of a year, personally and professionally. I think this has hurt him, not just professionally. I think off the pitch it's hurt him too, and he's had a lot of change in his life. And I think Steve's right. I think maybe there's an element of trying to protect him. Well, he doesn't need protected anymore. Yeah. He's doing his talking on the pitch. Those 2 goals were different gravy. The technique to drill that shot into the ground and then take it away from the keeper. And he knew exactly what he was doing. And then the bloody volley from the corner, crazy. Yeah. You're not going to see that very often. And it takes a special kind of talent to be able to do that. And now we're reaping the benefit. And like I said earlier, now there seems to be an understanding between him and Bruno about where they need to be on the pitch at the same time. That can only allow us to get better and to blossom as a team. But there's absolutely no doubt that the team is 100% behind Tonali. And Tonali, when he does open up a little bit, I think the gratitude he shows to the club and us as fans is palpable. And I think he'd be feeding stuff around Europe at the minute, saying, they look after me. This is somewhere I want to be, not just because of the club, but because of the fans too. And all of these things bode well for us going forward as we want to grow. And I think that that looking after of Tonali and letting him get back into his stride. And now the rest's up to him from here. And he can do whatever he wants. In that 6 role, he's a conductor of an orchestra. And I don't think he'll ever be playing the triangle again.
Stu?
I'm more concerned why Chris Cooper didn't want to wish me a Merry Christmas there.
Because it was put in the chat before you came on the show.
I was only joking, Steve. I'm not that too. Anyway, I put a tweet out after the game because I was allowed to go on Twitter because we'd won and I wasn't going to get criticised. And what I wrote was Newcastle have activated the Tonali cheat code or cheat code Tonali, and it seems like that. And we are. Well, I'm certainly guilty of going all in and getting excited and being over positive. But he could quite possibly be the best midfielder we've had in a generation. And he's shown all the signs of it. He's comfortable on the ball. He wants to move the ball forward constantly. If there's a man on him, that doesn't seem to bother him. He's got vision. He's quite clearly able to score, as we've seen on Wednesday. And if we want to bring the Italian in, which I don't think we need to, but if we did, he could then, from the number 6 role, or defensive midfielder, as I like to call it, because number 6 used to be a centre-half in my idea, he could become the new Pirlo for Italy and for Newcastle. And he owes us, and he knows it, and he's wanting to pay it back in spades. And we've talked about for the last 12 months, we've got 3 blue chip players, which was Isaac, Gordon and Bruno. We've now got at least 4. And then if you add Hall onto that, and you've got people like Joe Linton and Livramento and, you know, like rising to it, we are on the cusp of becoming a good team. All the most important person at this club going forward over the next few months is not anyhow, it's not Mitchell. For me, it's Peter Silverstone. If he can get some sponsorships in, we don't need to sell anyone. And all this scaramongering that goes on, we don't need it. We can start adding to the squad. Remember, there's this thing that there's a word that people have stopped using. Remember that word, Mitch, I said to you? About spreading the money over? Oh, of course you do, man. He does. He's just lying. when you don't, if you buy someone for 50 million, amortization. I know it's amortization. I was waiting for you to find it. You don't spend 50 million, you spend 10 million. So if we can get some more sponsors in, which even with the way the rules have been pushed back, it allows us to do so. Peter Silverstone, it's now your time. You come forward, and it doesn't have to be a major sponsorship, but just enough. Maybe it's another shirt-to-sleeve sponsor, training ground sponsor that's going to bring 10 million this season. We can go out and spend 50 million pound on a right winger. We're in business, and we are very, very close to doing so. And Tonali, for me, is critical to that. And for me, he's reveling in the role, and he's enjoying it. And the fact that, as Steve mentioned there, that the way the team gathered around him, it shows he's got the support of the dressing room as well. And when you've got special players, sometimes the grass isn't greener. You don't want to go somewhere else. If you've got a cracking camaraderie in the dressing room, if you've got belief in the players next to you, then you want to achieve something together. And it's now bubbling over nicely. And I'm going to have to go now. This is why Mitch went first. I've got to get back to the airport. So I just want to wish everyone who's watched NUFC Matter over the years and over this year especially a very Merry Christmas. And I'll see you all next time I'm on the screen. Possibly, I think the next professional is going to be around about January the 5th, somewhere like that. But anyway, everyone have a great Christmas. Drink as much as you can. Ignore all the health warnings. It's Christmas. You're meant to let your hair once in a while.
Prediction, Stu, for Ipswich and Villa?
Well, that's probably the most obvious question I've been asked all day. And I've got 3-1 for both already. And Isaac first goal.
Great stuff. Have a good Christmas, mate. We'll be
you too. Enjoy yourselves, lads.
All the best. All the best, pal. Steve, I just want to add something that Stewie was to what Stewie was saying. From an international perspective, if you remember, some of the fans who went to Milan and commented on the number of fans wearing Tonali shirts that were Milan fans. They still worship that lad. They still idolise him. They still see him as the quality footballer that he is. And from Newcastle United pushing into the international arena, and in terms of sponsorship and in terms of fans watching our games overseas, this is another step forward for us. You know, the Italian TV, when we're on, I'll be interested to see whether or not we get more coverage than we previously did because of the Italian TV, because of the presence of Tonali, because they want to see how he's playing, not necessarily how we're playing, but when he plays well and we play well, then all of a sudden they start to admire the way we're playing and they start to become supporters themselves or watchers of us. I'm not saying supporters as such, but maybe take us on as a second team or a third team or whatever. But certainly aware of Newcastle United, and that awareness in Newcastle United on the international stage can only be a massive positive thing. I know that fans overseas know Newcastle United to a greater or lesser extent, but this is transcending that. It's moving us into a much bigger sphere, Steve, and that's what we have to do as the club grows. And I had this conversation with Matt Willis, who's one of who's our supporter liaison officer, and we're talking about a new ground. And you know, in the course of the conversation, people around us before the match on Wednesday were saying, "Oh, you know, we only need a 60,000 seater ground. We just need an extension on the Gallagher, blah blah blah." And my opinion was, we need balls out to go for a 90,000 or 85,000 seater stadium, simply because we've got A, look to the future, and B, we've got a lot of youngsters who aren't coming to St James's Park because A, they can't afford it, their families can't afford it, and they're going to be the future. So we need to have a ground where we can fill it at £10 a ticket if we want to. You know, we shouldn't be looking and worrying. We should be looking way into the future. And when we talk about, and I know I'm going off track a little bit here, but when we talk about a new stadium, this is a move for 50 and 60 and 70 years down the line, you know, and that's why I'm very much behind a new stadium for Newcastle United, as close as we can get to the current footprint in the city centre, because that makes us even more unique.
Great stuff. Great news as well from Steve Bennett. Great to meet you this year, Steve. He says, spend time with all the guys this year. Just had the best news ever. My daughter's coming home from Ukraine for Christmas. Look forward to seeing George on Christmas as well. So great news, Steve. That's wonderful. Give us your views on Tonali, George.
Oh, best thing that's happened in Newcastle for a long time, in my opinion. And in a backhanded way, he's banned for a year, which looked like it was a complete disaster. It shows you something about the mettle of him. He's made use of it under the guidance of Howe and the coaches, and he's come back a better player and a better person, and that's obvious. And if the last three internationals for Italy, he's been the star of the Italian team. You know, he just hasn't been the player; he's been the star. And some of the stats that Spenny sent and others sent, one of the ones that's missing is the one that you can find on one of the Italian channels, is about the fact in those three games he was the fastest man on the pitch in each of those games. He scored goals, he set goals up. I mean, it just is phenomenal, and his touch is so delicate. Lads are right to point out about how he took his goals, but no hurry, quite deliberate what he did. And we've got an international player who won't miss goals because he can't kick with both feet. You know, it just is. And remember his age. You know, he's at the start of his career. Really, we've got the opportunity to have that young man throughout the peak of his career to take Newcastle places anywhere he wants to go. And there's no doubt that he will be a proper trumpeter for Newcastle United and Newcastle Geordies when he's away playing abroad, and saying just how he's been taken into the Geordie family and how he was looked after. That'll go down, you know, everywhere he goes. And the other thing is, I've tried to watch one or two of the Italian videos when he's been playing for the national side, and to listen to the Italian commentators. Now, my Italian is very rudimentary. You know, I could get into trouble in any place in Italy with my Italian. But the one thing I do pick up when the commentators are talking about Tonali, they keep talking about the Newcastle Machina, the Newcastle machine, in other words. And you know, they don't heap praise lightly, and they go on and on and on about them being like that. And we're starting to see it in our own team now, and he can only be good for the rest of the team. The other thing to remember is he's captain of their under 21s and under 23s, so he's thought of and more highly than just as a player. He's thought of it a lot more than that, and that's something else we might be able to tap into. And I'm impressed at how very quickly he's been able to come forward and start giving press conferences in English. I mean, how, you know, some players don't even attempt after they've been here years. Yet here he is, you know, barely 2 years into being in Tyneside and feeling able to go in front of the cameras on his own. And I just think that's all very positive. And as I say, look at his age and think what we've got to come. If he stays with us, we've got somebody who could be our leader on the pitch for nearly a decade at the highest level. We haven't had that for a long while. Well, people are right, not since people like Beardsley and so on, with the skill level that Tonali's got. And the other thing that, going back to Spenny's stats, is I'm glad he put it on, because it showed what I was saying at the beginning about is not just his attacking ability, his overall football ability. When he goes to face somebody to try and get the ball, very few people get past him. Very few. If he doesn't get the ball directly, he gets it toward it and stops what's happening. And that's, you know, that sound all kind of all-rounded stuff from a player with his skill is brilliant, and something I've no doubt he'll be able to pass on to the likes of Miley and others that are coming through. So, you know, Tonali really best things since sliced bread is the phrase. Well, he's even better than that for me.
Cheer butter. Okay, time for the day I met, where we ask you to send in photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle United, past or present. Thank you, Ian Smith, who has sent us this in. Hi all, I just wanted to introduce myself, share a photo that I took, Wallace took in our street a few years ago. Peter Beardsley. Thank you, Ian. Great stuff. Great stuff, mate. Brilliant, great. If you've got any photographs of you meeting somebody from Newcastle, past or present, send them to nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Go to the Facebook group or page, like or join, send us on there, or at Steve Wraith on Twitter, and we will get them on the show over the next few weeks and play this music, which certainly divides the public. 475 watching on YouTube, 500 watching on Twitter. If you're watching on Twitter, jump over from Twitter and search NUFC Matters. Hit the subscribe button. It is free. We do 7 shows a week. And we've got a minute to go. In fact, it's done. And the competition for the Lindisfarne tickets is over. Thank you to Keith for providing the 2 tickets. And I will... leave it to somebody who is contactable by email. So the first person to drop me an email will claim the tickets. There's only the two of you who bid, Yvonne and Ray. First one to email nufcmatters1892@gmail.com will be the winner. So it's up to you guys. It's the only fair way I can do it. Email us now and you will have the tickets. First one in gets the tickets. Thanks for joining in that, and thanks to Keith for donating. Pity that he can't go. He's gutted he is in London. But thank you all the same for donating for a good cause. Okay, time to look ahead to Newcastle United's game at the weekend, as we often do in the last half hour of the show. Ipswich Town away. It's our return to Portman Road, first time since 2017. It's a non-televised game, 3 o'clock kickoff. 3,000 away tickets sold out, no surprise there. Team news: Nick Pope still injured, as are Callum Wilson, Emil Kraft and Jamal Lascelles. Sven Botman is making his slow return. Managed to play an hour, as we already discussed, in the under-21s this week, but not expecting to see him until early January. Perhaps the FA Cup could be the game where he is penciled in. Sean Longstaff will be available after serving his one-match suspension in the Carabao Cup. Joe Linton is suspended for this game after having stitches to the injuries he sustained as well midweek. Fabian Shaw and Sandro Tonali are one yellow card away from an automatic one-match ban. That finishes the Man United game over the festive period, so hopefully they can get through to the next couple of games without getting booked. As for Ipswich Town, they're suffering as well with a suspension, and it's good news for Newcastle. Liam Delap is serving a one-match ban after getting his 5th yellow card. He scored 6 of Ipswich's 16 goals this season. George Hurst also misses out through injury. Can be a bit of a poison chalice, this. Kieran McKenna's side are yet to win at Portman Road in the Premier League this season. They've lost 4 times and have drawn the other 4. The most recent top-flight success at Portman Road came in April 2002 when a town side, including Titus Bramble, defeated Middlesbrough 1-0 with a Darren Bent goal. Referee tomorrow is Stuart Atwell from Warwickshire. He hasn't taken charge of a Newcastle game this season. Last game he took charge of was that 1-0 win over Arsenal, which they still haven't stopped going on about. VAR is back, of course, with it being the Premier League, and that is John Brooks. One can only imagine that Mr. Gillette is having a weekend off. The fact that he's not actually doing it for us. As always, we have a little bit of business to get through, and we'll start with Scunny Mag.
Hi folks, Scunny Mag Paul here with another away day guide. This one's for Ipswich. If you're heading down to see the Toon take on the Tractor Boys, this one's for you. Okay, Ipswich Town. If you're travelling by train, Ipswich Station is just south of the ground. It's served by Great Anglia trains which connect to the main line, Great Northern and cross-country trains through Cambridge. But they're about an hour and 20 minutes from Ipswich, so it's a long journey. On the roads, it's not much better. Once you get off the motorways, the road network in Suffolk isn't great, and they're nicknamed the Tractor Boys for a reason. If you are driving in and you need parking, there's quite a decent amount near the ground, which will set you back around £5 on a match day. There's a large car park run by NCP just to the east of the stadium, and that's really popular with a lot of fans. Your 3 words for the entrance to get you in the right area will be pasta, powder, pint. Anybody that prefers a nice easy exit, I've picked out a Sainsbury's car park. Your postcode for that is IP20BX, and your 3 words is seats, secure idea. That'll set you back £4.99 for a day. Now, don't go to that and just park up. There's a 2-hour limit. You'll get tickets, but if you pre-book through Just Park, you can book larger slots of time, and that works really well. Moving on to pubs, just across the river from the Sainsbury's, on your left there's a pub called the Mermaid. Big venue. It's also got a hotel attached if you are staying over. Spoke to them. They are more than happy for away fans to visit. You can wear your shirts, you can wear your colours. Skills Cherry Rider will get you to the Mermaid. Moving in closer to the ground, if you're coming in on train, there is a designated away fan pub across the road from the railway station called, surprisingly, the Station Hotel. Again, hotel. You can stay over there. It doesn't have so many rooms, but it's an option if you're coming in on train. Best forgot found will get you the front, or IP28AJ for a traditional old postcode. Moving further east along the river, you've got a place called Isaac's. It's a sports bar, got a huge courtyard area, and when I spoke to them, he was really enthusiastic about getting in away fans. He's like, yeah, that's our thing with sports. We want everybody to come, we want everyone to mix, wear your shirts, bring your flags, happy days. So I'll highly recommend that one, especially if you're that side of the city. Find the courtyard of that at Mint Gravy Rally. And when you're moving up to the ground, you want to be on the southeast corner. Visiting supporters are in the south end of the Kobold stand. You'll be looking for turnstiles 10 to 13, and Issue Having Family will get you in the right area for away fan entry. And I think that's it from me. Enjoy the game, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.
Happy Christmas to Paul. Thank you for that, as always. And just a question in the chat. People saying, will there be an Amigos next week? Yes, 7 days' time, 27th of December. We will be back, obviously, to discuss what has just happened in the last couple of Premier League games. But yes, no rest for the Amigos. Rest for quite a few other shows. But we will be back. Probably only an hour and a half, though, because it is the festive period. But we'll have a catch-up with you all next week. Okay, time for Tune Statto.
Hello. In a week when Newcastle reached their third semi-final in the League Cup in their history and second semi-final in the last 3 years, both under Eddie Howe. Tomorrow, away to Ipswich. Ipswich Town have last won at home at Portman Road in the Premier League in April 2002. Titus Bramble was in their side and Darren Bent scored the winning goal. But Newcastle has a bit of a history of reviving clubs with a bad run. We all remember who Derby County registered their only win in the 2007-2008 season. And in 2020-2021 season, Sheffield United, winless in 17 or 18, they registered their first win against Newcastle at home. Still, Newcastle has only one defeat in 22 games against newly promoted sides, against Luton last season on Boxing Day, and they have won their last 4 in a row, including thrashing Leicester last week 4-0. Alexander Isak has 12 goal involvements in 11 Premier League games against newly promoted sides, 10 goals and 2 assists. He failed to register a goal involvement only in 2 of these games. Another player to watch is Jacob Murphy, with 4 goal involvements in his last 2 Premier League games. 2 goals last week against Leicester and 2 assists against Brentford. As many goal involvements as he had in his previous 14 games in the Premier League. Let's see what happens tomorrow. Away the lads.
And thanks to Andre, Tune Statto, much appreciated all your stuff over the last 12 months, and have a happy Christmas, you and your family. Okay, Steve, time to get round to the business end. Predictions and thoughts about tomorrow. Obviously, the one change that we do know is that Joe Linton won't be playing, but Sean Longstaff will be back. I can see a lot of people suggesting that Willock might be the one to come in for Joe Linton, but it's an away game. Eddie won't be looking at this as a guarantee, and like I've already mentioned, it's that kind of concern, isn't it? When a team hasn't won at home, somebody's going to be the team that gets beat. You've just got to hope it's not Newcastle.
That's right. I mean, you on paper you would say this is a game that Newcastle United will take 3 points from, but when you hear that they haven't won at home or this season, and you're thinking, "Oh God, it's Newcastle," you know what's coming. But then I'll look again, and I think, you know what? The way we played against Leicester, who everybody was saying were running into a bit of form last weekend, and then the way we played Brentford, who we know don't travel very well, we're on a run again. We're on a little bit of an upward curve, and you've got to say that if you have aspirations to be up there at the top of the league and to be challenging for European places, this is a game you've got to win. Simple as that. And I think Eddie Howe is starting to pick teams and adapt his squad while looking at the opposition now as well, which is a good thing. They are going to be difficult, but without Delap, as you say, because he's been the main man this season with 6 goals. I think that the sun is very much on our side in terms of where it's shining. and I expect us to come away with all 3 points. And I'm gonna go for a 3-1. I'm gonna go for a penman. It's the momentum's with us. We said 3 weeks ago that this week was good, or this 8 days was going to be a vital period of time for Eddie Howe and for Newcastle. And the writing was on the wall if we didn't pick up the points, and we didn't pick up a cup win. We got points, we got the cup win, and I think we'll carry on in the same vein. So 3-1, walk away with the points, and set us nicely up for a game against Ipswich, against Aston Villa on Boxing Day.
And a prediction for Aston Villa as well, Steve.
Prediction for Villa. I think that'll be an interesting game as well, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 home win.
Okay, Mitch, feelings about this game against Ipswich?
I think Eddie nailed it in the press conference that I think they probably have played better than the points tally shows. We've got to be on my game going there. The time was we were the perennial problem solver. Not won a home game all season. No, we're here. The strikers not scored in the last 6 games. Well, we're here. That used to be us, and it would be nice to show the world that that's not us anymore. And I think we've got to be ruthless. Yeah. We've got to go there and be ruthless as we were midweek, and as ruthless as we were against Leicester. If we do that, if we show up, they're missing key players as well. Yes, we're missing Gillington through suspension, but I think they're missing a couple of real key players. And I think we can cope with the loss. I'm not sure their squad can. But we've got to be on our mettle. We can't be lackadaisical like we were against Brentford in the second half. That can't happen again. That would be disastrous to see, in my opinion. I think we've got to ride the wave and roll with the hot hands. And if we turn up and do what we can do, we should be able to secure 3 points.
Okay, roll of the dice, Mitch.
The dice says 1-2.
Okay, and your
prediction? And I would take the same, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm going to go 2-1 as well. George, Aston Villa prediction, sorry, Mitch.
Villa prediction. The dice says 2-1.
Okay.
All the way around, so our favour as well. I think we'll squeak it. I think it'll be 1-0, and I think it'll be very, very nervy.
Okay. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win at Ipswich, and I'm going to go for a 2-0 home win as well, like Steve did. George?
Yeah, it's Ipswich is an interesting one for Newcastle because it's an emotional one for us, isn't it? I mean, the contacts between the two clubs are very extensive. Down through what Bobby Robson did for them, and down through even further for what Jackie Milburn did for them. Because if you speak to the older Ipswich fans, they will tell you that the Ipswich training grounds and the Ipswich scouting plan was all set up by Jackie Milburn. And when others went in and followed, it was all there ready for them when he'd set it up. So it's a very emotional one between the two clubs, and it's always a very friendly one as well, in my knowledge. From a family point of view, it's a bit emotional because when my father was in the RAF, one of the places he was stationed was very near Ipswich. So if he got a weekend off, he couldn't come all the way back to Tyneside. So he used to go into Ipswich and get a bed in the YMCA on a Friday night and go to the match on a Saturday and then go back to his base. So Ipswich has a lot of things for me. But what it doesn't have is my thoughts of a Newcastle defeat tomorrow. I'm like you and Steve. I think we're 2-0 winners, and the notion that we're the ones that are going to spoil this run, or they're going to spoil their run on us, I think is a thing of the past. I think we'll win 2-0 and be where we should have been if we hadn't faltered with those games earlier in the year. The lot of regard for the Ipswich manager, including if you listen to Eddie Howe's press conference today, how very praiseworthy he was about him. So they're not going to be a rollover, but I still think we've got enough to get a 2-0 win, and look forward to it. I think it'll be an entertaining game myself.
And Aston Villa, George?
As I said, like you and Steve, I'm a 2-0 win against Aston Villa as well. It'll be an interesting game, but I still think we'll win it 2-0.
Okay. Finishing off this show, just want your memories of Sir Bobby Robson, Steve, Mitch and George. Steve, starting with you. Sir Bobby Robson, obviously it's the Bobby Robson derby tomorrow.
Yeah. Memories. I'm gonna go back to 2008. Back in 2008, Mitch and I, and along with the rest of the lads from NUFC, held a match day collection. A little bit ahead of the time of the match day collections that we do now for the food bank. But we had a bucket collection outside the ground before the Liverpool game, and we raised £3,200 as part of Newcastle United Supporters Club. And we donated that money to the Sir Bobby Robson Foundation. And Sir Bobby said, when he heard about it, he said, I want to meet you guys. We sent the check straight away. And he said, I want to meet somebody and I want a proper presentation. So I was lucky enough to be selected to go along to the Freeman Hospital to meet Sir Bobby. It was originally going to be happening in the I think it was in the February or March, but it got put back until towards the back end of the season. And so I turned up with a colleague from the Supporters Club, and there was quite a few other charitable donation people there, some lads from Middlesbrough who had done a cycle ride, etc. So we turned up and I made the presentation, and when Sir Bobby we had a false check, one of the big ones. When we're standing there, Sir Bobby started chatting and he goes, how you keeping? And I'm going, oh, I'm fine. Good to see you. Oh, it's a pleasure to see you. And I'm thinking, this is rather odd. Anyway, we got a photograph taken and we went and sat back down. And then everybody else did their little bit. And then as Sir Bobby was being wheeled out after saying a few words to the crowd that were there, he suddenly, he was in a wheelchair. It was almost like a Phoenix Nights moment. And he starts saying to the lady who subsequently found out was Lady Elsie, I think, get us back in. So she wheeled him back in and he shouted across, hey, you lad, come here. And he pointed directly at me and I'm thinking, what the hell have I done? So I went over and he goes, get on. So I went down on one knee virtually and I said, yeah. And he whispered in my ear, he goes, sorry about that, son. He says, thought you were somebody else. And I went, oh, right. I said, don't worry about it, And he goes, aye, I thought you were one of my ex-players. So I went, all right, okay. So I didn't want to just leave it at that. So I thought, he's made this wants to talk about it. So I said, oh, which one? And he said, Eric Yates. I thought you were Eric. And I went, oh, right. So at this point, I said, well, I said, so Bobby Agans, it's funny you should say that. I said, it's quite a similarity, about the same height, long hair. He says, left-footed, I played. He goes, aye. He says, you played yourself, did you, son? He goes, aye. I says, I was left-footed. I said, I wasn't very good. I says, left-footed. And he looked at us straight in the eye and went, at least you tried. And that was it. Off he went, and that was it. A couple of weeks later, he sadly passed away, and we all know, the outpouring of emotion. But just to have that as a little sort of ditty, and the way that he was gracious and just he wanted to apologise for something I hadn't noticed about, and then to round it up by just dropping the went, at least you tried. I thought that was beautiful, and I think it summed up the man. It summed up his emotions. It summed up the very much the sort of man of the people, and he didn't want to go away feeling as though he had sort of misrepresented himself or me when we'd met up, and he wanted to kind of apologise. So that's my recollection of Sir Bobby on a positive.
Brilliant stuff, Mitch.
You can look at Sir Bobby in many ways. His time at Newcastle, his time in England. the malaprops, and some of which I'm quite sure he knew what he was doing at times. And then other times when he gets Shola saying, what was his nickname for you? Called Court. That was phenomenal. But for me, it's about legacy. Legacy in the game. Without Sir Bobby, there's no Jose Mourinho. Without Sir Bobby, there's no Pep Guardiola. Without Sir Bobby, there's no Luis Enrique. Something like 6 members of his 2 England squads have gone on to manage at the highest level. The one I always puts a smile on my face is Nigel Pearson, the perennial caretaker manager. But who does he say the first person he used to pick the phone up to was? Sir Bobby. 2 stints at PSV, and I think something like 4 of his squads there went on to manage at the highest levels. Sporting and Porto, I think about 12 between the 2. And 12 of his Barcelona squad have managed either at international or the highest level in the top leagues in Europe. That's because of him. And then if you want to add a few more, somebody who probably was culpable of disrespecting him a little bit. I'd be interested to hear what Craig Bellamy would say right now as manager of Wales.
Yeah.
I bet he'd wax lyrical about Sir Bobby. And that's the influence across world football. I believe at one time, the managers of the European Championship, the South American Championship, and the African Cup of Nations all played under Sir Bobby Robson.
Yeah.
That's probably mental. You think about it, about guy from County Durham and his influence on world football, that there's so many people will talk about Sir Bobby Robson and get misty-eyed. And characters like Jose Mourinho, who, like him or loathe him, he's a scurbit, he's divisive, he's Marmite, probably more Marmite than you, Steve. And
wow.
Yet, he talks about Sir Bobby's house when he comes to St James's Park, talks about how he was looked after, the stories he tells about DMLC. You know, that's what I think when I think about Sir Bobby. It's legacy. And that's for a brief moment he got the chance to manage his beloved club. And I only wish he'd known what Barcelona were going to do to him once Keegan was moving on, because he would have been the perfect dovetail, Keegan to Sir Bobby, had he not been a noble man and an honest man and an upstanding man and honoured his contract and then got shafted by Barcelona. So that's what I think of when I think of Sir Bobby's legacy. Yeah. The influence over so many players, managers and individuals in world football, and that he has an association with Newcastle United and that he's seen as ours. And that Mackham who wrote that shite earlier today, so many Mackhams will stand up and say, yeah, we might sing songs about him, but you know what? We respect him. And he's beloved from being from the northeast. And there's no Geordifying of any kind of football legacy there.
Yeah.
He was a County Durham lad through and through. And there's your conundrum about what is and isn't a Geordie, and about what is and isn't representative of the northeast. And somebody who was universally adored. That's what I think of when I think of Sir Bobby.
George?
Well, it's I've got two stories, but I've just to follow on what Neil's just said is that that this is being called, we call it the Bobby Robson Derby. tells you as much about him as anything else, because that's how he's held in regard by both sets of fans. The football story first. The period of my life when I worked with the Home Office, occasionally they would have big meetings in the Home Office at the weekend. So I regularly on a Friday night was flying down to London from Newcastle. And of course, if Newcastle were playing in London at Arsenal or somewhere like that, quite often the team was on the plane that I was on. And one night, I think it was an Arsenal game actually, I was flying down and they were just in front of me, and they were all chatting and having a bit of a laugh. And Shearer was telling the story to Rob Lee across the aisle, so everybody could hear the story. And it was a joke, and everybody laughed. But the only trouble is, behind Shearer was the little French winger Bobby had just brought in, and a Spanish guy, and somebody from somewhere else, an Italian. Oh, I think was it Pistonia? It might well have been. Anyway, they hadn't a clue what Shearer was talking about. And then this old guy from Durham came down the aisle, and in Italian, French, and something else, managed to explain this stupid joke to those people in their own language so that they could laugh at it as well. You know, and people never saw that intellectual side of Bobby Robson. He was just the old Geordie that did this and did that. But there was a huge intellect in the man as well. So we shouldn't forget that. As well as all the humour that he created and all the love he left behind. And the other stories to do with scouts. I go back to being County Commissioner Scouts in Durham. And Bobby lived near Esh in Durham, not far from where he was born. And the scout leader in Esh had been given a very big award by the Scout Association. And of course, it was my job as County Commissioner to go out and present this award to the scout leader. Well, the scout group had a bit of a party for this award for the County Commissioner coming, and had invited all the local dignitaries and all the rest of it. And of course, the thing gets started, and just before I make the presentations, a bit of a scuffle at the door, and in walks who? Bobby and Elsie Robson to this scout hut to come and honour the scout leader. And it was lovely. And the way he talked to the kids, it was like watching the granddad talking to his grandchildren. It was absolutely wonderful. But the end of the story is a Bobby Robson ending, because when he went home, all the scout leaders were laughing, because when he made a little bit of a speech himself, he named all the scout leaders and got every bloody one wrong. And they were all just laughing about it because they loved him so much. So there's two Bobby Robson. So the only sadness for me is, in my opinion, how harshly we treated him in the end. That really was not called for. It was cruel and totally unnecessary. And yeah, great, look, fantastic. But yeah, he'll never be remembered because two things: great football, but guess what, lads? He was just a nice man as well.
Top man, always somebody who's held in high esteem. Very lucky to have met him on numerous occasions. I, of course, worked at the football club when Sir Bobby Robson was manager. And yeah, you'll never get anybody as more passionate than Sir Bobby was for football in general. Every job he did with pride, but immense pride. He did the job at Newcastle with immense pride, and that day hurt him when he left the club. Make no bones about it. And Mitch has already really hit the nail on the head. Had he come in when Kevin left, Newcastle United would not be still waiting to win that elusive trophy. But he's always in our minds going into this game tomorrow, and I'm sure everyone travelling down the 3,000 Geordies and everybody who will be in Portman Road tomorrow will be paying their own tributes to Sir Bobby, as we have just done tonight. Thank you to everybody for watching. Thanks to everybody in the chat and everybody who moderates as well. Been great. We do just want to finish off quickly about Mirdad, because me and Mitch were talking before we came on. You bumped into Mirdad, Mitch, haven't you? You've had a chat with him.
He's been out here in Dubai, and I was trying to get him and the family to come along to watch the match on Wednesday night. And a few other the Dubai mags have been in touch with them to try and get them along on Saturday as well. Was a lovely chat, and probably the the most I've interacted with my dad, obviously since I had a chat with him at Al Hilal when we were out there a couple of years ago. I'll just say this: once a mag, always a mag.
Yeah.
And I'll get the bugger out on his own, even on a midweek if I keep trying. But one thing's for sure, the love for Newcastle United is very much still there, and I think he's very much aware about what the Dubai Mags are doing and where we're at and what's going on. So I think if they're going to be based out here for the foreseeable future, I think some persistent nagging from a number of will get them out eventually.
Great stuff. Fantastic. Thanks to everybody for watching. Thanks to George, to Mitch,
Thanks
and
for
to Steve.
watching, everybody.
Thanks to Stu for joining us as well. Safe travels, George.
God, he's gone.
Yeah, I'm saying safe travels to George. He's flying out to see
Thank
Mitch.
you.
And hopefully we will have the pair of you on together on the Amigos next week. Looking forward to that. I'm back tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. Me and Ben Jacobs, although we do know that Ben sometimes has to drop things like the drop of a hat. So it could just be me on my own. We don't know. But at the moment, we are penciled in, me and Ben, for the morning. Sunday, it'll be Three's a Crowd. And then we'll be back with the Fans Forum on Monday. Look forward to seeing you all then. Take care. Have a good weekend. Don't let the football spoil it.
All the best. Merry Christmas.
Yes, everyone.
See ya. Thanks.